Inugami, a tale, a true tale of darkness. To be honest, I was kind of wondering whether or not I was going to be doing this particular live stream. And it's an utter last minute thing. I didn't even plan on doing this, but here I am. Faye, it is good to see you. Thank you for joining me this evening. It took a lot for me to decide whether or not I was going to share this story with the person that went through it with me. A lot of nights just sitting in my room thinking about what happened all those years ago when I first decided that I was going to explore the realm of the Obaki, the ghosts, the Uhane. Choose whatever you want to call it. For some reason, this is what happened to me. Call it fate. Call it whatever you want to call it. Before I begin, my apologies. My apologies because I'd gotten ill. Been going through quite a few things since the incident at Old Pali Road at Auloa, where I had gone through what I truly believe was a spirit attack. And since then, I've kind of been going to and fro with everything with my health and everything else. But for some reason, here we are on the night before Halloween. And so whoever watches this, whenever you choose to watch this, you can now hear this story that I truly believe that nobody would want to encounter, no matter how curious you are about the paranormal. You would not want to encounter something like this. To tell you the truth, the only thing I knew about the Inugami was through a book that was written by Glenn Grant at first. That's the only thing I knew about it. My interest with ghosts primarily had to do with interaction with people who shared stories or family or something along those lines. That's how my interest was that's how I was introduced and had that curiosity, was through that source. I never expected that even though I had gone through my own situations with haunted places and living in haunted houses, that I would actually be sitting here one day with you with a skull in front of me on the night before Halloween telling you stories like this. But here I am, sharing this with you. I never expected this. I didn't know what an Inugami was. As far as anything that has to do with this type of entity that we will be talking about tonight. And hello to everyone out there. As far as this entity that we will be talking about tonight, my only connection that I can find and that I can think about is, what if, and I'm just giving this as an idea, what if connections are made well before we get involved with whatever we do with our lives? Name any type of situation in your life. What if these things are set up ahead of time? A person, a place, and in this case, a supernatural entity that could easily destroy you. What if this is all set up ahead of time? And what if in your lifespan, you're given these little connections to that? In my case, I already shared with you stories about how my family had actually encountered, along with myself, well, it was my mom and myself, encounters with a dog demon. It was well before I even decided to do this. What if that is all part of this? Could it be the case? I think it's possible. With all the years that I've worked with ghosts and everything, and all the crazy things that I have seen, and trust me, if you get involved with this field, you will see crazy. You may, in fact, go crazy yourself. Ask anyone that has gone out with me if that is not a possibility. Because, yeah, it is. It is a very real possibility. So here we are tonight. I had to think about it. Like I said, really had to think about it. Am I going to come on here? Am I going to talk about this? Will this invoke the Inugami? Remember a couple weeks ago when I did a show about the old Poly Road, all of this, some kind of synchronicity from Aloha to the interview to the dog that was growling on the live stream to right now. Is it possible that I could be getting the attention of this entity? And by the time I am done with this story, you may wonder along with me if that is the case. In the past, I've done ghost tours. I've given snippets of this story, but never given the whole thing. Why? Because I'm too close to the source when I tell the story. I'm right there at that place. And I don't want to hear the howling. No joke. I don't want to hear that noise. That still lingers with me years later, and everything else that went with it. So let's begin, shall we? As we get closer and closer to Halloween, right? At midnight, the veil is supposed to be as thin as it gets. So let's talk about this. As a matter of fact, let's talk about this in the dark. Shall we begin? Some of this stuff you've already heard, but a lot of it you haven't. So, my family, or a member of my family, was entrusted to take care of this cemetery. That's what it was, a cemetery. This is where everything starts. And at first I had no inclination to go to any cemetery at all. But eventually my family invited me to come down, and they had like a get together and everything. And it was a beautiful place, but by the time I had gotten there, I didn't see what had happened before. Before I even stepped foot into the cemetery, it was a horrible set of circumstances that was going on there. I mean, it was in a state of disrepair. I mean, grass and weeds were everywhere. People were committing unspeakable crimes at this place. They were leaving, again, all my shows are never recommended for kids, okay? But people were leaving like condoms and all kind of crazy stuff on headstones. The place was in a state of desecration. That's how bad it was. But over a period of time, my family, or a particular family member, and another person were able to start doing the work, the hard, honest work of bringing this cemetery back to where it needed to be. And it took a while to do that. Now, on the property of this particular cemetery are two buildings that were greatly affected by the desecration. By the time I got there to the place that we're talking about, it looked nice. They had done a great job in doing a restoration that was badly needed. So badly needed. It was heartbreaking when you hear the details of how bad off this place was. So everything started with a photograph, more or less. We were all gathered together, and we're sitting outside of the caretaker's home. And my family member pulls out a camera and starts to take some photographs of us, mementos, getting together. And in the back of where we were sitting, there were these odd little, what I call not orbs, but just energy. It looked like energy that was like in the back of us. And so my, I'm just going to say it. My sister gets very excited and she says, "Here, look at this." And she shows it to me and she goes, "This isn't the first time that this has happened. Inside of the, I think it was inside of the house, around the property, they were taking photographs and they were getting very strange photographs. They were getting orbs and all of this other stuff." To give you an idea of my sense of the paranormal, I didn't even know what an orb was right away. She explained to me that they were getting weird photographs. And that's how it all began. And not long after that was when everything went wrong. It's when hell broke loose. I mean that. Absolutely mean that hell broke loose. So, curiosity is now established. That's the one thing you got to be careful when it comes to ghosts and spirits, is your curiosity. It's the one thing that you have to have control over. I didn't know that at the time, neither did anyone else. So what happened was my sister and some of my friends decided to go out at night, and they wanted to see if there was anything going on. They were kind of wondering, could this activity be because of what happened? It was terrible what had happened. Like I said, the place, I'm surprised it wasn't noticed earlier that how many ghosts were roaming around the property, because this sense of lack of respect to the place. So they wanted to see if there was anything else like that going on. And so they walked around the property and they took photos, and they got some very strange and frightening results. Many photos, as a matter of fact. There are photos, I'll give you an example if you want to know. And if you like, please, I didn't say in the beginning, turn off your lights. It's Halloween. Gather around if you want to get an idea as to how spooky this scenario is. You're walking around in the dark, turn off all the lights in your room, whatever. That's how dark the place was. It's practically pitch black. And you're walking around at night. You're being very quiet. You're being very as respectful as you can be. And you're taking photographs. And you're getting all kind of strange anomalies and orbs. And when you start taking photographs into the trees, and you see faces in the photographs, like all over the trees, in the branches, on each branch, like faces there. That's the kind of stuff they were getting as far as evidence goes. But there is one photo in particular that they took. And my guest that I had on a couple weeks ago for Old Polly Road actually has the photo in his collection. And what it looked like was something sitting near one of these buildings, kind of like hunched over, pale, long, skinny arms, body emaciated, with like the head of a ferocious looking skull of a dog, with a long snout and sharp, oversized teeth. And its hands were kind of like going over its head, almost like it was kind of like trying to block the flash of the camera, looking directly at the person taking the photo. You should have stopped at that point. Should have stopped. And again, at this well, around this is around the time I started getting involved with the paranormal. So, at first I'm telling them, you guys should stop. Take a look at a photo like that. You really should stop. Don't do this anymore. But I feel that sometimes, depending on the situation, you can get drawn in, and before you know it, there is some unknown, practically unstoppable force that will try to establish itself as the dominant alpha presence. Think about that. When it comes to dogs and wolves, that is a very, very strong, strong animal instinct to be dominant and to control. That's what I feel happened. After that photo was taken of this thing, it took hold of everyone. And the more I started to go there, the more I started to talk to them about it, I got drawn into. I am not making any excuses. It's one of those situations where you really had to be there. You really had to be there to understand what I'm telling you right now. You had to be there to understand this force that took over everyone. Everyone. And so I end up being caught up in it too. And the rest, I know that part you've heard of. I went out to a store, bought myself a camera and a digital recorder, and started looking for answers. And we should have known, like I said, but again, this, whatever it was, had a very strong influence on us. One of the first things I know that really created a problem for me, I didn't know about it till later on, but it scared me when I found out, was that one of the caretakers was at one of the two buildings down below near the cemetery and restoring it. It was around dusk when this happened. So he's working on repairing the building, when all of a sudden, as the sun starts to go down, behind him were these two huge doors, huge thick wooden doors. You could hear from inside of the building someone pounding, trying to get out. It was very loud. It was very, very loud. And the reason why he freaked out and he stood up right away was because there's no way that that kind of sound could be coming from that door. No way at all. No way. I know because I went down there myself and I checked it out. You could not make that sound. And that pounding just went on and on. Finally, he left. So let me tell you something about this building. This building held the remains of some of the people that were intended to be buried there. Their ashes were kept in this building, in urns. So one day after this had happened, they opened up the doors for this because they wanted to show me something. They were very, very actively involved with trying to not only restore, but make sure none of the stuff that happened before could occur again. And what was going on was that they were taking the urns with the ashes in them. people were breaking into this building. They were taking the urns and they were using the urns to make money. Remember a couple of years ago, actually more than a couple of years ago, when people were selling, vandalizing places for brass and other metals. It's the same thing. They were breaking into this place, and what they were doing, I didn't know until they showed me, because they were doing this nothing to do with the paranormal, out of concern for the place, was that they were actually taking the urns, and what they did was they opened up this trash bag by the door, and they were emptying the ashes into a trash bag. That's what they were doing. Not one, not two, but quite a few of them. All into a trash bag. Is there any wonder? Any wonder at all why that sound was coming out from that building? And that trash bag was inside of the building, right next to the door, where someone would be pounding. Now that alone, that right there, I mean, that's a lot. And that's a ghost story in itself. And someone would write something like that and they would like end the story, because that was the theme, that was the focal point, was the ashes that were being thrown into a rubbish bag. Again, just the ultimate disrespect to this place. But that wasn't the end of it all. It wasn't. And the more we looked into the details, sooner or later, we found the devil in it. It is my belief that what happened created this problem, drew in what was part of the vengeful set of circumstances. We would go down there at night, and the one thing that we started to notice was there was a pattern to the haunting that was going on there. We go down there and we'd sit down and we'd wait until the sun went down, and then the shift and the change, the heaviness and everything else that would go on. And then there would be weird things that would happen, like from up the street from where this place was, there'd be like this huge red light that would show up, this ball of red light that would show up and would come down. It would come down the street on our side. You couldn't really see it from the road, but from where we were at by these buildings, and it would come right down towards us. And anytime that happened, and it happened quite a few times, anytime that happened, things got weird. Okay, I mean, so weird that sometimes your mind will block it. Seriously, block that scenario that's taking place. But that red light was always the indicator. That red ball of light would come down towards us, and as soon as someone said red, didn't even have to say light, as soon as someone just said the word red, I mean, we were just backing out of the situation. And again, I realize that, and I'll probably hear this in the comment section. So whoever says that kind of stuff, again, when you're drawn in like that and there's some kind of force that brings you there every night to repeat the same pattern, you're already scared the first time from all this other stuff that's happening, but to bring you back to that place, I was the skeptic. I mean, even though I went through all I went through in my life with ghosts and everything, I was the person saying, hey, you know what, just leave it alone. You don't know what you're dealing with. It could be anything. No, I'm caught up in it, in the loop that is going on at this place. I'm caught up in it, absolutely and completely. It got to the point where whatever was going on at this place actually was able to draw people in that weren't even involved with trying to restore the place. Nearby, there was people that were showing up for ghost tours and such, and People that were doing their own thing, and they wanted to actually, for some reason, they were drawn to the property. People weren't coming there for where we were at. They were there because there were other things going on. But everybody felt compelled to come to where we were at. And it became very difficult to juggle all of these circumstances. And it got so bad, to let you folks know, it got so bad that when I would go home at night, after all of this was done, I would go to the back of my house and I would sit down and I would light up a cigarette sitting in the dark. And I hope some of you are sitting in the dark right now too, to get a better feel and understanding of what I'm trying to tell you folks, emote to you folks. I'm sitting there in the dark smoking my cigarette, and there's this big old mango tree. Big old mango tree in the backyard. And sometimes they wouldn't rake up the leaves, so the leaves would be sitting there in the back. And it got so bad. It got so bad that when I got home, talking about spirits that follow you home. So I might as well do the whole thing. Spirits that follow you home and everything. This is the worst of that. Spirits following you home. So I'm sitting in the back of the house and I got my ashtray. I'm sitting outside on my wooden stool and I'm smoking my cigarette. And I'm just trying to gather my thoughts and relax. And you start to hear someone in the dark walking on the leaves. You can imagine, whatever you want to try and work in your head with that, of the sound of someone walking around there in the dark under the shadow of this mango tree. That's the kind of stuff that started to happen. And it wasn't just one night. It was several. And this is where I think the Inugami starts to come into the picture. Actually, to tell you the truth, if you ever read a book called Dracula, Dracula is only in the first part of the book, physically there, and for about 80% of the book, he's in the background. He's there, but you don't really see him. That's how this Inugami, that's how this entity was. It was there in the background. The red light coming down the street, coming towards us. The pounding on the door. Someone walking in my yard. This is the beginning of the Inugami establishing its presence. Now, I'm going to pause right there, and we're going to talk about how this definitely could be an Inugami in one other aspect. If you know anything about the story that Glenn Grant shared, it had to do with someone becoming a victim of the Inugami. You never really saw the Inugami in its true frightening form, because of course it's a demon, and of course it's a spirit. And yeah, something was trying to take over. Something definitely was trying to possess. It got to the point where, I don't know, there's no, where I lived, you had to smoke in the back of the house. That was the rule. You got to smoke in the back of the house. I got no other place to go. Unless I want to go for a long ass walk somewhere. And I was living in the country, and I didn't feel like doing that, walking down one of those roads. So anyway, one night I was sitting in the back of my house again, and I was smoking a cigarette. And I was talking to a friend on the phone about what was going on at this particular place, the cemetery. It was about dusk. The sun was going down. And for some reason, I felt this really creepy sensation. My eyes go to the right. And I'm looking up at the sky. And there's this gray ball of energy with weird arms and everything coming out of it. And it flew directly towards where I was at. And I was so freaked out. I was so terrified because I could not make sense of what I was looking at. It did not compute. It did not register what this thing was. but it was this gray ball of, it looked like a comet with arms and everything coming out of it, and it went straight towards where I was sitting, and I practically flew off of my stool with my phone in my hand, and all you heard was this tremendous, because I turned my head away, this loud bang as it hit the roof of this shack that was in the back of the house. It had like a tin roof, and it just made this loud noise, and I was terrified. I told my friend, "Hey, listen, I gotta go." I couldn't even explain what I saw. Closed the phone, backed away from that shack in the back of the house. But I came back outside after that because I really felt like I felt ill. I felt really, really ill, like something terrible had come into our personal space. That's exactly what it sounded. I mean, that's exactly what it felt like. And so I turned on my recorder, and I had my camera, and I took some photos. And in one of them, there was like this gigantic round ball of light. If this was an orb, this was a mega orb. This was an orb that I've never even thought would be that big. And it was encompassing the entire doorway. And on the recording that I had, because I started to get angry about this intrusion, I said, "Who are you? Why are you here? Why are you bothering us?" After saying it a few times, on the recording, there was a voice that said, "It's Jack." I'll tell you what's disturbing about that too. Jack is one of the names that is actually used for the devil. And need I say more after that? Need I say anything else after that? And it was getting bad. And it was escalating. And we were being drawn further and further in to whatever this entity wanted to do with us. It got to the point where finally we were granted access to one of these buildings that needed to be looked at because of all of the things that had happened in there. I'll tell you how bad it was. This building that had all the urns and the ashes in it. People were also going in there and they were doing drugs and they were using it for prostitution. Let that sink in for a bit. So what's occurring, I think, at this point with everything, with what we're discovering in the building is it's drawing in evil. Just nasty, pure evil is being drawn in to this building. And the further we started to investigate and try to find, acts of what was going on so they can start doing the restoration and everything else, the more we felt affected. At this point, you're next to the nuclear reactor. You're hitting ground zero. You're definitely succumbing to whatever's there. And it's drawing you more and more in. At that point, my roommate at that time was telling us, "Don't go in that building. It's calling you there. It's calling you guys there." It's just every night it's saying, "Come and check out what's going on." We didn't listen. And it started to get worse. More and more outsiders wanted to come onto this property. More and more people. This thing was drawing in people. It was drawing in people from wherever. and they were coming onto the property. People had to get people off the property at night. Everything is accelerating at this point. Worse and worse. I remember on one particular night when we were in the building, and it's airtight once you close the door. Airtight. You close the doors to this building, and that's it. There's some kind of ventilation, but if you don't turn on a flashlight, it's just black. And we would go and check out, slowly look in this building to see what was going on. Finally, we got to the top of the building where I think this Inugami lived. We didn't know what it was back then. Got to the top of the building. And we were shining our flashlights into the rafters. And there was like these weird looking shadows moving around up there. I didn't want to say nothing because, just to let you know, the stairwell that we had to go up, which is several floors up, it's a very narrow stairwell. And if you fall over the railing, that's a nasty drop. So there's no way we can turn around and run. We could leave quietly, but nobody could run. Nobody. We're looking at this light in the shadow. With our light, we're looking at this weird shadow that's moving around in the rafters, a living shadow. And my roommate says, I can see him. I'm like, who? I can see him. Who's him? You don't want to know. And then all of a sudden, my friend who has been with me on this investigation the whole time looks up at the shadow and he goes, you know what? We can see you. We see you up there. We know that you're there. Come out. Why are you hiding? We know you're real. Almost blanked out on my mind after that. It was so terrifying because this thing started to come after us in its own way. It invaded our thoughts. It invaded every part of us. That whole thing of feeling like it is taking over possession and everything else started to happen. And we left. We got out of there as quickly as we could. I went home. I played my recorder that I had on. And at the part where my friend says, we see you, we know you're up there, you can't hide from us, there was this voice. And this, out of everything, is what really started to scare me about the paranormal, was the intelligence behind whoever it is in the dark. As it said, do you think I bullshit? Clear as day. Clear as day. As if whoever it was, that shadow that was up there in the rafters came right up to the microphone and said, do you think I bullshit? After that, weird things started to happen. Really weird. My equipment would start to break. If I brought it to the property, I started to use it, it would break. Again, that's a warning signal. Stop what you're doing already. Just stop doing this. And I didn't. None of us did. And misfortune after misfortune started to happen. Talk about bad luck. Talk about your life spiraling out of control. People getting sick. My sister on the property was riding a lawnmower one day, and all of a sudden it decides to go down the hill towards the building where these things are happening. She falls off of the lawnmower. She hits her head on the ground and practically cracks her skull open. Luckily, that didn't happen, but that's what was going on. It got so bad that we brought in two sensitive people from the Hawaiian community to come onto the property to look around and to tell us what is going on with the place. And what they described to us was these entities that are running around, howling and angry, whatever you want to call that type of spiritual expression, vomiting, cussing. And it almost tried to kill my sister. But there was something even bigger than that. It was in that building, in those shadows. And trust me, this is not easy for me to sit down and talk with a bunch of strangers with. Everyone expects the usual thing with the paranormal. Oh, this is a haunted house. We heard voices. We saw something in the house moving around. Dishes went flying into the air. All the other things that people expect around Halloween. This was something that I just, I honestly wish. You know how you say that if you could change your past, would you? Yeah, I would change that. That whole thing, yeah, gone. Would not have done it. But like I said, people were being drawn on the property. We were caught up in it as well. Terrible things happen. And during the course of all of this, we lost a member of my family. I'm not saying it's the paranormal. I'm not saying it's the Inugami. But I can't say anything more than it was just tragic. It wasn't an accident. It's just someone passed away. And so finally, something has to give. You can't just keep doing this forever. You can't. Something has to break this cycle before it's too late. So one night, I go with my friend back to this building. And we're in this area of the building downstairs called the ping pong room. It's a storage area for the building. And there was a ping pong table in there, and they would play ping pong. So yeah, that's why they called it that. And so we went in there. And I remember being in that room with my friend, and we're talking about all the things that have been happening so far. But this is a room we've never been in before. We've always gone into the upper part of this building, and we're down in the basement, and we're talking. So we decided to try this experiment. And what it is you take this flashlight, and you turn it on, and you set it down on the ground. And then, of course, you ask whoever's there to turn off the flashlight. And so we did that. We set up the flashlight, and we're sitting down, and we're kind of like talking amongst ourselves. I did say, hey, whoever's here, can you turn off the flashlight? So we started getting into this really big conversation because there's a door, an open doorway past the flashlight, and you can see the outside. And all of a sudden you see this huge shadow just go from the left to the right across the doorway. And we just get startled by that. And so we're really afraid. You got to walk out of this building. You got to go to the door You got to get out of the building through that door. So we're talking, and then all of a sudden, my friend goes, because we're just going back and forth about this big shadow, and he goes, "Look at the flashlight." And the flashlight was off. That was enough for that part. Then again, whatever was at the top of the building, in the attic, was waiting for us. So we gather up everything that we had, build up enough courage to go out the door where the big shadow had moved across the doorway, lock everything up, went up into the building. When we got into the building and we made our way to the stairs, right at the foot of the stairs was a Bible that was opened. And it was open to the book of Revelations. And it was highlighted. I didn't bother to read it. Also, somebody had brought with them some religious music of some type, probably to ward off. Someone was probably staying there to ward off whatever was in the building from coming near them. That's all I can tell you. That was the only thing that I saw there, and I put it all together. That's the only thing that made sense to me. Again, how many times you need to stop, but you can't. And you're being drawn in to whatever it wanted to do to you. And we worked our way up those stairs. I remember one night we were going up there too. As we were walking up there, I was thinking about that. One night we had gone out there after taking a break. We came back and it was raining outside. And you could hear like the rain and everything, but you could also hear water kind of like dripping in the building somewhere. And at one point before we hit the attic, you could hear someone walking. And it sounded like someone very heavy, maybe several hundred pounds, walking above us. That kind of sound. And you know, I saw all the movies. I'm sure you've seen horror movies in the past. I'm sure you've seen them where you hear footsteps. This wasn't like anything I've ever heard before. And when we called out to say who was there, it stopped. You want to hear scary? Not your typical ghost story or anything like that. We went up the stairs. And when we got to the top of the stairs, we started to take some photos. Looking around. At this point, I think I'm crazy, but there's something telling me you're not, you belong here. Now that's crazy. They're taking photos. I'm standing there with my recorder. And then all of a sudden, from behind me, I see this light. We're in the attic. All there is behind me is those narrow stairs going down. No one's in the building with us at all. No one. And it looked like someone had like a lantern or something and was coming up the stairs. And the light got brighter and brighter. And when I saw that, I turned to everybody and I said, hey, listen, I don't know what we're going to do, but we got company right now. And then they turned, because they weren't looking in the direction I was. And they turned and they looked at me and they said, what are you talking about? I turned around and I looked and it was just darkness. Nobody there. Nobody there at all. And we got out. So we're walking up there on that night, and all of these thoughts, after we did everything in the ping pong room, all of these thoughts are with me. And we get up to the top. It's just me and my friend. I decided to do the flashlight thing one more time. So there's a cabinet up there. I set the flashlight on the cabinet. I turn it on. My friend is walking into the middle of the attic, turns on his flashlight, shines it on the wall. I'm paying attention to my flashlight. And again, I say, if there's anybody here, can you turn off my flashlight? Did that a few times. All of a sudden, my friend screams. Excuse me. And when he screams, I mean he screamed. And I look where that beam of light is hitting the wall. And there's this hand. This huge hand in the flashlight beam. I'm looking, I'm trying to make sense out of everything I'm looking at. Flashlight beam. And this is when I probably knew that I was going to become a paranormal investigator. Flashlight beam. Friend holding the flashlight. I'm standing here. Where is that hand coming from? There's no source for a giant hand to be in the beam of this flashlight. There is no source at all. None. The hand, this huge giant hand, starts to vibrate like it's on a different frequency besides the physical plane. And then suddenly it's gone. I try to stay calm because like I told you before, lights coming from below, all these other crazy things that has happened. I need to keep my calm. So I decide to look at my flashlighting and, halfway crazy at this point and say it again. Hey, if there's anyone here, can you turn off my flashlight? That's crazy, right? As I'm doing that, my friend screams a second time. At the top of this building, where there's no way out except these narrow stairs, you can't run. He screams, I turn, I look, and I miss what he saw. So I said, what happened? He said, as I was doing what I was doing, it was what looked like the shadow of a man upside down, coming from the rafters into the beam of light, or something that looked almost like a man that came down into the flashlight beam. I missed that. I didn't get a chance to see it. And so finally, I just say to myself, one more time, I'm going to do this and then we're going to leave. Looking at the flashlight, I say the same thing. There's another scream. I turn and I look, and this time there's this giant head in the flashlight beam. And what it does is it kind of like leans forward towards my friend, and then all of a sudden it just disappears. And that was enough. I mean, that's 3 strikes, you're out. So we got our things together, went downstairs, got out of the building, left. I had to get home. I couldn't take any more of this. I was just like, it's time to quit. It's just time to quit. There were so many strange things going on, and that was enough. That was really enough. So I said goodnight to my friend, headed on home. This is when I'm starting to get home. I get a phone call from my sister, pick up the phone. Hey, sis, what's up? She tells me, so I heard about what happened tonight. I said, yeah, it was pretty crazy up there in the attic and everything. And she goes, oh, no, I know about that. I just want to know about the bite. And I'm like, what bite? The bite. Sereno got bit. Sure enough, there was this huge bite on his hand. Huge bite. Dripping blood. He didn't even know he got bit. He went home, showed his roommate his hand. I mean, the bite went from his palm all the way to the front of his hand. It was a huge bite mark on his hand. And his roommate was freaking out about it. Well, my friend took some holy water, put it on top of it. And about a day later or so, the entire bite was gone. I can't explain that. Later on, when we were talking about it, when we saw that big head in the flashlight beam leaning forward, what we more or less thought what happened was whatever that was bit him. That giant head bit his hand. And that was enough. But see, this place wasn't even done with us. We decided no more. We're going to make our own pono with the building. I did my own thing. He did his own thing. And we made pono with the building as best as we could. And whatever it was that was in it. Then it got really crazy. We started to see mist. Almost like you see at a haunted house. Like when you go out on Halloween night and you go to visit these buildings and you see the mist that's all over the floor, like from a dry ice machine, a fog machine, just like that. And it's everywhere. And you can't figure out where it's coming from. You can't. Things flying in the sky at night. You can't figure out what it is, but it's always flying towards that building. Shadows that show up on the outside of the roof of the building. I forgot to say that before, but there were shadows that were leaping around there as well, all being called to that building. People being called to that building. Spirits being called to that building. All of it converging at this place. At one point, someone tried to let some people in to see what was going on, and too much things were happening. They wanted to get some people that were dealing with the paranormal in there. Too much things were going on. Too much things, voices and everything else, all converging on that building. Just everything being sucked towards that building. Now you're probably wondering, with all of this stuff that I said, why do I think this is an Inugami that's doing this stuff? Well, number one, and the most important thing of all for me, is having somebody that can see better than I can. And so I was lucky enough that a friend of mine sent down a very gifted person that can see spirits. And we brought him down to the property. We kind of told him what was going on, but not everything. And so he goes and he looks at the building. And at first he's looking at the bottom of the building, the ping pong room and everything is. And he starts to look up towards the rafters. And he's looking at it for a while. Then he turns to me and my friend and he goes, There's two spirits that are here, two major spirits that are here involved in that building. One of them is a caretaker from a long time ago, and he watches the place, makes sure that everything is okay. That's what he does. On the top of the building where you folks were at is an Inugami, a dog demon, and that is its home. The one thing I had to think about when he said that is, see, these dog demons are made. There's a person that creates the Inugami, that tortures this dog, this poor dog, this random dog, or a dog that this person finds and keeps, buries it up to its neck, starves it to death practically, puts food right out of its reach until the dog is going absolutely crazy. And the person that does this to the dog makes a deal with this animal that if I feed you and take care of you, you will do whatever I ask you to do. And then decapitates the dog, unleashing its ferocious spirit, newly born. What if the person, this sensitive, what if the man that he saw was the one who created the Inugami? If there's an epilogue, it's this. Now, whenever we used to go into the building, that building had a particular smell. At first, I thought it was like a dusky, like a damp, wet smell. You know what I'm saying? That type of smell, like an old smell. And then come to think of it later on, it smelled like a dog. And every once in a while, when we would be doing something somewhere else, because we said goodbye to that place, I would smell that dog. The other thing is, we would hear howling at night. And that was scary because always that sound came from that place. Always. One night while we were doing some paranormal work in the vicinity, our lights started to go out. And all we had was this flashlight that you had to charge. It didn't have batteries. So it started to get weaker and weaker really quick. And we're getting spooked out by that. So we left the area and we walked towards the building. Didn't go exactly near it, but we walked towards it, and we stopped at one point and we decided to do a prayer. And we did. So I did a prayer. We all stood in a circle. And as I'm doing the prayer, my friend is looking behind me. And when I'm done, he tells me that while I was praying, there were two large yellow eyes a few feet behind me. Another thing that tells me it may be Inugami, besides what people said and what I told you, is that in the story with Glenn Grant, Inugami is persistent. Just because you leave it doesn't mean it leaves you. No, it doesn't. And there were a number of times when I'd be in downtown Honolulu walking with my roommate and you could smell dog right there with you. One night on my way home, I felt this stinging sensation on my wrist, and we'd smelled dog earlier, and I bring it up to to look at it, and there's a bite mark on it. Thankfully, it didn't draw blood. Thankfully, it wasn't the same size, but it was there. Another reason why I think it is an inugami. On another occasion, we got out of the car up at Old Pali Drive. This is in the early days of my doing work in the paranormal. It was me and my friend, and we got out of the car and we were taking photographs to see if we could get something in our photographs. Remember that saying, though, be careful what you wish for. In one of my photos, there's what looks like a dog laying on its back. A white dog. Something along those lines. And it has slanted eyes. And it has this evil grin on its face. And it's laying in the grass. And it's looking up into the dark, into the trees. And now that I think about it, for all those of you that have been following my channel for quite a while now, remember the story of Kanaka Nui. On the night of the blood moon, when we saw what looked like a very large man with the head of a dog appear suddenly after knocking down a tree. I think that's quite enough to give me an idea that the Inugami is real. So much so, as I start to wrap things up with this story, that when this famous television company came to Hawaii, like I mentioned in the past, some of these things you do know. Now you can see the connection. They consulted me to ask questions about the supernatural, different types of spirits and demons in Hawaii. So they wanted to meet. And they wanted to see if people wanted to be on the show. They wanted me on the show. So they interviewed me. And when they started asking about the Inugami, and they were talking about wanting to go out looking for it, I said, don't do that. Don't look for the Inugami. And then when they pressed on and they said, why? I said, because it's dangerous. Don't you get it? You're dealing with something you have no idea about. You don't understand it. Matter of fact, I have an inkling of an idea, and that was too much for me to handle. The Inugami is dangerous. They were filming, and then they said, say it again. I should have known why. And I looked at the camera and said, the Inugami is dangerous. Needless to say, after the warning, I was not picked to be on the show. But there were some people that were. Some people that were. Matter of fact, some of my friends that did the show in that area where Kanaka Nui was seen, this was years before that, they heard something that sounded like a growl. We've heard something that sounded like a growl. My roommate has seen a large dog prowling around the area. And then years later, Kanaka Nui shows up. Or maybe the Inugami. Like I said, it's persistent. And like any wild animal that gets its scent of you, can hunt you down. That's my story. Take it for what it is. Just know that it's real. Let me see what some people are saying here. Hello to everybody that said hello. Thank you for stopping by tonight. Hopefully you liked the story. Aloha, everyone just got here. There's something very heavy presence around at this point while I'm telling the story. We're not alone. Fact is, it's Halloween. Many celebrate demons rise from the grave. Still day belongs to the Lord. Yeah, I believe that we are at that point with Halloween. And thank you for everything you said, with the blessings and everything, Johnny. Witchcraft, there's evil spirit entity. Yep, all of that stuff is true. You're welcome, Kuhao. You're very welcome. This is what brought me more and more into the field. This is something that I never wanted to have happen, but it's there. So whenever I'm out there and I see red eyes or anything else, I just can't help but pause and to think, is it still out there? To be honest, every once in a while, that feeling comes back. Wanting to go there. And I know it's not me. It's whatever it was from the past trying to pull me in once again. Thank you, Byron. Thank you. Crazy story, Byron. I'm telling you, crazy, And that's why, when I was thinking about this story, I was like, there's some kind of Inugami going on with this. There is some kind of Inugami going on with this story. And you know what? I will look for the photo, because this was a surprise thing. I didn't even, I was like, am I going to do a show? Am I not going to do a show? I haven't been around because I haven't been feeling well and other things. And I said, you know what? It's October 30th. And one thing I can do, one story I can do is the Inugami story. So thank you, Byron. I really appreciate hearing feedback. Johnny says, in my head, I see red big teeth dogs that growl, intense as in fights, frustrated noise. Try not to think about that stuff, Johnny. That's not good. Clear your thoughts, clear everything. Don't think about the details. It's not your story to begin with, my friend. So, no hoo-hoo. No need to ponder these details. Trust me, it was a powerful set of circumstances with an entity that was drawing in people and other spirits and all kind of things to this one place, its lair where it lived. So yeah, try not to let that get to you, my friend. Kuhao, I'm so sorry to hear that you weren't feeling well, my friend. My prayers go out to you, your sweet cats, and to Jennifer, and I wish you a full speedy recovery. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, buddy's doing good, as a matter of fact. And I left you a message. Hopefully, you got it. That I couldn't do any shows. I put it on social media. No shows, no nothing. I just need to recover from Aloha. From Aloha. And again, like I said, all of it. Think about what happened with the show that I did for Old Poly Road. And you could hear dogs howling on my end. Some people said they could hear the dogs on that live stream I did. And this is another reason why I just said, you know what, I'm going to tell the story. I wanted to bring him in on the story, but I'm like, you know what, no, I'm just going to do this myself because I don't want it to get any bigger than what it is. So I had to stop it. Thank you, Kuhao. Yeah, after Halloween, it's vacation time for me. I will be occasionally chiming in and coming back to talk story with you folks. Maybe share some other experiences, some other guests, and everything else as time goes on. Bring Kuhao back and everything. But it's going to be a while before I really start fine tuning things and stuff. I might just stop by and do some talk in the darks with you about certain things, and we'll take it from there too. As for Halloween, oh boy, we're close, right? How close are we to Halloween? Maybe in some parts of the world, you folks are already celebrating Halloween. So, is it really worth celebrating though? I mean, I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I don't know if I want to celebrate it. Um, but yeah, you're probably going through Halloween right now. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I've been talking with some of the people out there. I might do something, I might not. And if I don't do something, uh, depends. If I do nothing at all, I'll come back on and we'll have a talk story and everything like we always do. Our talk in the dark. Um, this was about as personal as you get with a talk in the dark. Uh, that was life changing. And the one thing I can say um, is that this makes you believe in God that much more. Shouldn't have to go through that though, but something that crazy like what I told you changes everything. It really does. So look forward to things here and there. And by the way, folks, I may come on in the next couple of weeks, depending on how things go. I'm going to be doing a new YouTube channel. It's going to be different, but if you want to like and subscribe, check it out too. It's something different, not this that I'm doing now, but I think you may like it as well. So I'll do an announcement for that. And by the way, thank you everybody. I'm at 2,040 subscribers. How? I don't know, but because I haven't been on YouTube at all. But thank you everybody for liking this channel. Um, and I know my videos when I'm out in the field are snippets of the unknown or ghosts, raw, unedited, right in the moment. Thank you for liking that type of video presentation. And thank you for liking the stories that I share and the guests that I have, like Kuhao and Faye and Joe Punohu, Jamie Whitaker, and all the people that do this show. Thank you so much for supporting it. I really appreciate it. And if you don't mind, tell your friends, like, share, and subscribe. You know the routine for that. Ring my bell and ask for all notifications. And that's the only way. Oh, thank you, Aristica. I didn't even know you were still here. And that's the only way that you're going to get all my notifications anyway. Or the surprise. Like, this was a surprise tonight. I just said, bang. It was about 20 minutes before I decided to do the show. It's like, before everything happens, like, I'm going to do a show tonight. It's going to be the Inugami that I'm going to talk about. Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you again for liking and subscribing and everything. My social media presence is going to be practically zero because, again, after the 31st, it's vacation time. I just don't know how long the vacation's going to be. Might be pretty long. But on YouTube, yeah, I'm going to be doing stuff, definitely. maybe not as frequent, but it's been a nice build-up. And I needed the break just to tell you this story tonight. I needed the break. Oh, I needed the break so badly. But I hope you all have a great Halloween. And if you do like what you're hearing, again, just let other people know. Several ways to, well, actually, let me break it down for you. I'm not going to be on Facebook much at all. So the best way to get a hold of me, I only do Instagram when I'm posting for these shows that we're doing. The best way to get a hold of me right now is to use comments on the channel, or you can email me. My email is obakihunter51 at gmail.com, all lowercase, O B as in boy, AKEHUN as in nickel, TER 51 at gmail.com. Best way to get a hold of me. I might be doing TikTok again in the future. We'll see how the pandemic goes. And then I'll be rebooting some of that later on too. 31st is on here. Can observe shadows. So quick watching kids trick or treating at animatronic. Remember, it's just a holiday. I mean, it's just a night that people put aside for all this spooky stuff. If you don't mind me saying at the end, I don't usually say this kind of stuff, folks. And good night to you as well, Kuhao. I'm not a political person. I'm not going to tell you, vote this way, vote that way. Whatever you decide to do with this is whatever you decide to do. But I also will say, please pray for our country and the world, for the pandemic and the loss of life, and also that how we need to come together. I really feel that, if anything, as a world community, we can actually build better bridges and relationships with each other. This should be a big lesson for everybody. So please pray for everyone, and the situation that's going on. And that's what I ask, that we can have a better world. And I believe that that's possible. Trust me, with what I face with the Inugami and all these other things, your life can get back to normal somehow. You can step away from the darkness and back into the light. So please, if anything, folks, please pray. No matter what happens next week, just pray that we come together. And with that said, folks, thank you very much. If I don't come on tomorrow, happy Halloween to each and every one of you. Again, I appreciate you listening to this story tonight. It was not easy to tell. Yes, Johnny. But yes, folks, take care of yourselves. Have a safe holiday tomorrow. I don't know what your plans are, if you're going to be watching scary movies or whatnot. And then get ready for the holidays. Oh boy, even with the way things are, I love me some turkey, and I love me Christmas. I love me some Christmas. I love the holidays. So stay safe, stay together as best as you can. People social distance, but our hearts do come together despite that circumstance. I will talk to you all later. Ghosts of Hawaii, your home for a dose of ghosts, and happy Halloween. I'll talk to you all again soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.